I was used to people pretending I was invisible. They'd walk past me like I wasn't there, like I was just another piece of the city's forgotten debris. But tonight, as I sat on the freezing pavement, arms wrapped around my shivering 5-year-old son, someone actually stopped. I felt his presence before I saw him, a tall figure casting a long shadow over us. I braced myself for another round of insults or fake sympathy, but instead, a deep, calm voice asked, "Are you all right?" I looked up and met the gaze of a man in an expensive suit. His presence was sharp, commanding. Everything about him screamed power, wealth. He didn't belong in the dirty, forgotten parts of a city where people like me survived. My lips were too numb from the cold to speak, but my son, Adam, stirred in my arms. "Mommy, I'm hungry," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. The man's jaw tightened. "When was the last time you ate?" I swallowed hard. I wasn't about to pour my sob story onto a stranger. "We're fine," I lied. His eyes darkened. "No, you're not." And then he did something no one else had done. He crouched down, right there on the cold pavement, meeting me at eye level. "Come with me," he said. "I'll get you something warm to eat." I hesitated. People didn't help for free. There was always a price. But when I looked down at my son's frail face, I knew I couldn't afford pride anymore. I nodded. And just like that, everything changed. The restaurant he took us to was the kind of place I'd only ever seen from the outside. It smelled of butter and fresh bread, a stark contrast to the stale air I was used to. Adam's eyes went wide as a waiter pulled out a chair for him. "Mommy, look fancy," he whispered, giggling. I shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't my world. I didn't belong here. But then the man sat down across from me, completely unfazed. "Order whatever you want," he said. I shook my head. "I don't take charity." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Then think of it as a business investment." That caught me off guard. "Investment in what?" He leaned back. "You." I stiffened. "I don't understand." His gaze held mine. "Eat first. Then we'll talk." I should have walked away. I should have grabbed Adam and left before I got tangled in something I couldn't handle. But hunger was a cruel master. And so, for the first time in months, I let myself eat without fear. By the time the meal was over, my guard was slipping. It wasn't just the food, it was him. "What's your name?" he asked. I hesitated.
"Mia."
He nodded. "I'm Damien." It was a strong name, fitting for someone who carried himself like he owned the world. "Why are you helping me?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. For a second, something flickered in his eyes. A shadow. Because once upon a time, someone helped me when I had nothing. I frowned. "You? You don't seem like someone who's ever had to struggle." His lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. Looks can be deceiving. And then he did something that made my breath catch. He pulled out his wallet and slid something across the table, a hotel key. "Stay here tonight.
"Get some rest."
I stiffened. "I'm not looking for." He cut me off. "It's not like that. You're exhausted. Your son needs a bed. Take it." I searched his face for any sign of deception. But all I saw was something I hadn't seen in a long time. Sincerity. And that scared me more than anything. I stood outside the hotel, gripping the key Damien had given me. A luxury hotel. The kind I'd seen only in movies. The kind that didn't welcome people like me. Adam yawned, his tiny body sagging against me. That settled it. Swallowing my pride, I walked through the revolving doors, half expecting security to throw me out. But they didn't. The receptionist smiled warmly, handing over a key card with a "Welcome, Miss Mia," as if I actually belonged here. The room was bigger than any place I'd ever lived. Soft carpets, warm lighting, and a king-sized bed that looked like a cloud. Adam's eyes lit up. "Mommy, a big bed." I choked back the lump in my throat. "Yeah, baby. Just for us." For the first time in months, I tucked my son into a real bed, wrapped in warmth instead of a tattered coat. I sat on the edge, my mind racing. Damien, why was he doing this? What did he want in return? I wasn't naive. No one helped without a reason. But exhaustion won over paranoia. For the first time in a long time, I let my body relax. As I drifted to sleep, I had no idea that my world was about to change forever. The next morning, I expected the dream to end. But instead, I found a note slipped under the door. Meet me for breakfast downstairs. Damien. I hesitated. I should leave before I got too comfortable, before I started believing this was real. But when I looked at Adam, his cheeks full of color for the first time in weeks, I knew I couldn't run just yet. I made my way to the dining area, feeling the weight of stares. Wealth dripped from every person in the room, their designer clothes screaming exclusivity. And then I spotted him. Damien, sitting at a private table, sipping black coffee like he owned the place. His eyes met mine. Sit.
I did.
A waitress appeared instantly. For the lady and her son? Damien didn't even look up. Give them whatever they want. Adam grinned. Pancakes, please. The warmth in my chest startled me. I turned to Damien. Why are you really helping me? He took a sip of his coffee, his expression unreadable. Because I know what it's like to have nothing. I frowned. You expect me to believe that? His jaw tightened. I don't expect anything from you.
Lies.
No one did something for free. But before I could press him, he said something that sent my world spinning. I have an offer for you. My stomach clenched.
Here it was. The catch.
Damien leaned forward, his gaze sharp. You're smart. You're a fighter. I see potential in you. I scoffed. Potential for what? To rebuild your life. I stilled. I own several businesses. One of them is hiring. If you want to work, I'll give you a job. I blinked. A job? Not charity. Not a handout. A chance. Why? I whispered. He looked past me, his voice low. Because someone once did the same for me. A shadow passed over his face, but he didn't explain. I studied him, searching for a trap. But there wasn't one. For the first time in forever, someone saw me as something more than broken. And that scared me more than anything. The job wasn't glamorous. It was an office assistant position in one of Damien's companies. Filing, scheduling, running errands. But it was mine. I refused to let him think I was a charity case. I showed up early, stayed late, worked harder than anyone. And Damien noticed. Every time he walked past my desk, his gaze lingered, watching,
Studying.
One afternoon, he stopped by my desk, dropping a folder onto it. You found a mistake in last month's reports. I nodded. The numbers didn't add up. I cross-checked them. His lips quirked up, the ghost of a smile. Impressive. I swallowed hard, ignoring the flutter in my chest. Just doing my job. But something in his eyes told me he saw more. And that terrified me. Not everyone was happy about me being here. One afternoon, I overheard whispers. Did you hear? Damien's got some homeless girl working here. Laughter. She's probably sleeping with him. Rage burned in my veins. I clenched my fists, ready to storm in and tell them exactly where they could shove their opinions. But before I could, a voice cut through the air. If I ever hear any of you speak about her like that again, you're fired. Silence. I turned the corner and saw Damien, his eyes like ice. The women stammered. Sir, we didn't. Get back to work.
His voice was calm.
Lethal. They scurried away like rats. I swallowed hard. You didn't have to do that. He turned to me, his gaze unwavering. Yes, I did. And just like that, the walls I'd built started to crack. Just when I thought I was rebuilding my life, the past came crashing in. I walked out of work one evening to find him waiting. My ex. The man who had abandoned me when I got pregnant. His smirk was cruel. Well, well. Look who's acting all high and mighty now. My stomach churned. What do you want, Kyle? He stepped closer, his voice dropping.
You.
Back where you belong. I laughed, bitter and cold. I'm not your punching bag anymore. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Don't forget who you really are, Mia. Trash. I tried to yank away, but he was too strong. And then, a shadow fell over us.
Damien.
His voice was dangerously soft. Let her go. Kyle sneered. Who the hell are you? Damien didn't answer. He just stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. Kyle faltered. "This isn't over, Mia." He let go and slinked into the darkness. I was shaking. Damien didn't speak. He just pulled off his suit jacket and draped it over my shoulders. "You don't have to fight alone anymore." And for the first time in my life, I believed it. I could still feel Kyle's grip on my wrist, the ghost of his touch making my skin crawl. But Damien, he stood beside me, an immovable force. His suit jacket was warm on my shoulders, carrying his scent, something rich and dark, like expensive whiskey and power. I hated how safe it made me feel. I cleared my throat. "I can handle myself." Damien's gaze was sharp. "I don't doubt that." Then why was he still here? Why did he make me feel like, for the first time, I wasn't fighting alone? He exhaled. "Come on. I'll drive you and Adam home." Home. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't have one. Damien must have noticed my hesitation because his expression softened. "Stay at the hotel for now. Until you figure things out." I should have said no. I should have run before I let myself believe in the illusion of safety. But I was tired of fighting alone. And for once, I let someone stand beside me. The office wasn't the same after that night. People noticed. The way Damien lingered when I spoke. The way his gaze always found me in a room full of people. "She's got the boss wrapped around her finger. She must be sleeping with him." I clenched my fists, the whispers cutting deep. But I didn't break. Until one day, I found an envelope on my desk. Inside was a single note. "You don't belong here." My stomach twisted. I looked up and locked eyes with Victoria, the CEO's assistant. Blonde, icy, and always watching.
She smirked.
I should have ignored it. I should have thrown the note away. But I was done being the girl who let people push her around. I marched up to Victoria's desk and slammed the note in front of her. "Something you want to say to my face?" She leaned back, amusement flickering in her eyes.
"Oh, sweetheart.
You think you're special? You're just another charity case." Rage burned in my veins. But before I could fire back, Damien's voice cut through the tension.
"Mia."
"My office."
"Now."
The tension in his office was suffocating. I stood stiffly as Damien paced, his jaw tight. "What happened?" I swallowed hard. "Nothing." He shot me a look. "Don't lie to me." I exhaled, my anger bubbling over. "You want the truth? Your employees hate that you're helping me. They think I don't belong here." His eyes darkened. "You don't owe them anything." I let out a bitter laugh. "Maybe not. But you and I both know this isn't just a job anymore." Silence. I regretted the words as soon as they left my mouth. Damien stared at me, something unreadable in his expression. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "You're right." My breath caught. I turned to leave, needing space, needing air. But just as my fingers brushed the doorknob, Damien spoke again. "I won't let them break you, Mia." And for the first time, I believed it. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. A few nights later, I was walking home from work when I felt it, someone watching me. I quickened my pace, gripping my bag. Then footsteps.
Fast.
Heavy. I spun around just as a hand grabbed my arm.
"Kyle."
His smile was cruel. "Told you this wasn't over." Fear spiked through me. "Let go." He didn't. Instead, he shoved me against the alley wall, his grip tightening. "You think some rich guy can protect you forever?" he hissed. "You'll always be trash." I gritted my teeth, refusing to let him see my fear. Then, a voice cut through the night. "Let her go."
"Damien."
He stepped into the alley, his expression murderously calm. Kyle laughed. "Look at this. Your little knight in shining armor." Damien didn't respond. He just took a step forward. Kyle sneered, but something in Damien's eyes must have spooked him because he let go of my arm and took a step back. "This isn't over," he spat before disappearing into the darkness. I sucked in a shaky breath. Damien turned to me. "Are you okay?" I nodded. "How did you?" His voice was ice. "I had someone keeping an eye on you." I stiffened. "You had me followed?" His expression didn't waver. I protect what's mine. The words sent a shiver down my spine. I should have been angry, but all I felt was something far more dangerous. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel alone. The next day, Damien had Kyle banned from the city. I didn't ask how. I didn't want to know. But the tension in the office only grew. People whispered. Some admired me. Others wanted me gone. And Victoria? She wasn't done yet. She cornered me in the break room, her voice venomous. Whatever game you're playing, it won't last. I met her glare with steel. I'm not playing any games.
She smirked. Good.
Then you won't mind if I ruin you. I swallowed hard. What are you talking about? Victoria leaned in, her voice a whisper. Damien has secrets, sweetheart. And if you're not careful, they'll destroy you. A chill ran down my spine. I wanted to believe she was lying, but something in her eyes told me she wasn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. Damien had secrets. I knew that. But now I had a choice. Walk away before I got in too deep. Or fight like hell to uncover the truth. I looked down at Adam, sleeping peacefully beside me. And I knew my answer. I wasn't running anymore. No matter what I uncovered, I was going to win. The next morning, I walked into work with a fire burning in my chest. If Victoria thought she could scare me away, she was dead wrong. But my resolve wavered when I saw Damien waiting for me in his office. Close the door, he said, his voice unreadable. I did. He leaned against his desk, arms crossed, studying me like he was trying to figure something out. You're shaking. I clenched my fists. I'm fine.
He didn't believe me.
What did she say to you? I hesitated. She said you have secrets. That if I'm not careful, they'll destroy me. Silence. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture stiffened. I waited for him to deny it, to laugh it off.
He didn't.
Instead, he exhaled. She's right. My heart pounded. Damien. He finally looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something I hadn't before.
Fear.
If you stay, Mia, you need to be ready for what comes next. I swallowed hard. And if I leave? His jaw tightened. Then I let you go. I had a choice. Walk away before I got pulled into something I couldn't handle. Or stay and face the truth. I met his gaze, my voice steady. I'm not running. For the first time, his lips quirked into something almost like a smile. Then buckle up. The first attack came later that night. I was walking out of the office when I saw my locker had been broken into. Papers were scattered everywhere. My personal belongings tossed onto the floor. And taped to the inside of the door was a single message. Leave while you still can. My stomach clenched. I turned, heart hammering, but the office was empty. Whoever had done this, they wanted me to know they were watching. I wasn't safe. And something told me this was only the beginning. I stormed into Damien's office, the note clutched in my shaking hands. Someone broke into my locker. His expression darkened as he read it. Then something terrifying happened. Damien left.
Low. Cold.
So they're getting desperate. I blinked. You think this is funny? He looked up at me, his gaze sharp.
No.
I think they're scared. My pulse pounded. Scared of what? He stood, stepping closer. Of what happens when I decide I'm done playing nice. I swallowed hard. For the first time, I realized Damien wasn't just a businessman. He was something else entirely. And I had no idea what I just stepped into. I spent the next few days looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next attack. And then it happened. I was leaving the office late when a sleek black car pulled up beside me. The window rolled down, revealing Victoria's smirking face. Need a ride? I ignored her and kept walking. She sighed dramatically. Oh, come on, Mia. I'm trying to be friendly. I stopped. You don't do friendly. She chuckled. True. Then her expression turned deadly serious. But here's my advice. Get out while you still can. I narrowed my eyes. Why do you care? Her smirk faded. Because I was you once. I stiffened. What? But before I could ask more, she hit the gas and sped away, leaving me standing there, heart racing. What the hell did that mean? The next morning, Damien was waiting for me at my desk. "Come with me." I followed him into his private office, where he locked the door. "Victoria spoke to you." It wasn't a question. I hesitated. "She said she was me once." Damien exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Damn it. My stomach twisted. "Tell me the truth, Damien." He met my gaze, something raw in his expression. "Victoria used to work for me. She got too close. And she paid the price." I inhaled sharply. "What happened to her?"
His voice was quiet.
"She lost everything."
A chill ran down my spine.
I should have been terrified. But instead, I clenched my fists. "That's not going to be me." Damien's lips quirked.
No.
"It's not." Because this time, he wasn't letting history repeat itself. That night, I barely slept. I knew what was coming. A war. I wasn't just fighting for my job anymore. I was fighting for my life. And I wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning, I walked into the office with my head high. And for the first time, I saw the fear in their eyes. They thought they could break me. They were wrong. I didn't wait for them to make the next move. I made mine first. I spent the next few days digging, following the whispers, connecting the dots. And then I found it, a file, hidden deep in the company records. Evidence of embezzlement.
Fraud.
And the name on the documents? Victoria. My pulse pounded. I had them. I had everything. That night, I walked into Damien's office, slamming the file onto his desk. He flipped through it, his expression unreadable. "Where did you find this?" "Does it matter?" He smirked.
No.
"It doesn't." Then he leaned back, his eyes gleaming. "It's time to end this." The next morning, the office was in chaos. Victoria had been exposed. The fraud, the money, everything. And just like that, she was gone. But the war wasn't over. Because the real enemy was still watching, waiting. And they weren't done with me yet. I received the call late that night. A voice on the other end. Cold. Amused. "You should have walked away, Mia."
Click.
Silence. My blood ran cold. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. The phone call haunted me long after it ended. My hands were still trembling as I stared at my reflection in the mirror. I wasn't the same woman who had sat on the cold pavement, desperate and invisible. I was stronger now, and whoever was coming for me would learn that the hard way. But first, I needed answers. The next morning, I marched into Damien's office. "Who else is involved?"
His jaw tightened.
"Mia. Don't protect me. Not anymore." A muscle in his jaw ticked. Then he sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Victoria was just a pawn. The real threat. He exhaled. "My former business partner." My blood ran cold. "Former." His lips curled into something sharp. "I cut him out years ago, but he never let go." I gritted my teeth. "And now he wants revenge." Damien nodded. "And he thinks hurting you will hurt me." The weight of his words settled in my chest. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about us. And I wasn't backing down. I spent the next few days preparing for war. If Damien's former partner wanted to play dirty, fine. I'd show him just how much fight I had left in me. I spent hours combing through old records, digging for anything I could use. And then I found it. A series of offshore accounts. Money transfers that didn't add up.
Fraud.
Money laundering. This wasn't just a business rivalry. It was a crime. I ran straight to Damien. "We can take him down." His eyes flicked over the documents, something dark and dangerous settling over his features. Then he smiled.
And it was deadly.
The next morning, I made my move. I sent an anonymous tip to the authorities. Then I walked into the office with my head held high, waiting for the storm. And it came fast. Before lunch, the entire building was in chaos. Officers swarmed Damien's ex-partner's headquarters. Arrests were made. Bank accounts were frozen. And just like that, he lost everything. I thought it was over. I was wrong. That night, I was walking home when a car screeched to a stop beside me. A man stepped out. Him. Damien's ex-partner. His eyes were cold, furious. You ruined me. My pulse pounded. You did that yourself. He lunged, grabbing my wrist. I could destroy you right now. A gun pressed against my ribs. I swallowed hard. I wasn't afraid to fight, but I wasn't stupid either. And then, a voice. Touch her and you die.
Damien.
He stood there, calm, composed, deadly. A single nod. A silent command. Within seconds, security swarmed, yanking his ex-partner away. And just like that, it was over. I stood in Damien's office the next morning, my heart still racing from the night before. It's done, he said, stepping closer. I exhaled, my body finally relaxing.
Yeah.
It is. Silence stretched between us. Then he reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. You should know something, Mia. I swallowed hard. What? His voice was soft. You were never just another woman I helped. My breath caught. He smirked. You were the one who saved me. And just like that, I realized I wasn't fighting this battle alone anymore. I never had to again.